when it comes to climate, when it comes to wind rising at the ends of the earth, when it comes to lightnings for the rain, when it comes to bringing forth wind from the storehouses, what does it say? Whatever Yahweh pleases, he does. That's why it is dumb, dumb, dumb. It is stupid, stupid, stupid. It is ignorant, ignorant, ignorant to think that there is anything that man can do to control the climate through human behavior.
This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher on American Family Radio.
You know, we talk a lot about environmental issues on this program, anthropogenic global warming, which I believe is the scientific hoax, the scientific scam of the 20th and 21st century. And someone we've depended on to kind of steer us and guide us through all of the dust that's in the air is Dr. Cal Beisner. He is the founder and national spokesman for the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. Cal, welcome back to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Brian, thanks a lot. Great to be back with you.
CO2 is the villain of the piece, according to people that believe that man is causing catastrophic global warming. But is that an accurate assessment of the role of CO2 in our environment and in the world?
What CO2's role in the Earth's environment is simply the fact that it is the elixir of life. We've increased CO2 in the atmosphere. I think that's good news.
First Alert Weather, powered by First Alert Doppler 6000.
You know, from the look of things early this morning, as you looked across downtown Miami, it's about 6:45 a.m., a quarter to 7 this morning. Things look pretty good. For me to tell you that if we burn X amount of greenhouse gases, or if we inject X amount of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, we're going to reach certain points of no return. That is as true as me telling you that smoking causes cancer. Here in South Florida, we are sitting in the epicenter of vulnerability to sea level rise as it pertains to the built environment. As temperatures are rising and they start to accelerate in the rise, we're going to be reaching these worrisome tipping points much faster. And this train, which has already left the station, is going to start to accelerate up to a point where we're just not going to be able to slow it down, and we're very concerned about that.
So this is where science is so important, because it relies on fact and data and logic and methods that can be replicated. And religion doesn't do that. Religion is all about faith. And so when people say, gee, I just don't believe in climate change. Well, it's the wrong word. Nobody says, for example, that, gee, I don't believe in the laws of gravity. And if they do, there's a real simple test. Come to the top of the building and let's check it out. You jump first. Science is not controversial. 98, 99% of the publishing working scientists, as opposed to the commentators and so forth and ideologues, know that climate change is real. The science could not be more definitive.
I'm not saying that some of the folks that are fellows of Cornwall Alliance or others are not scientists. I'm not saying they don't have degrees. Some of them probably have PhDs. But the problem is that they have PhDs in subject matters that are not related to the science that we are discussing.
The Cornwall Alliance is a network of evangelical Christians. Our aim is to integrate the insights of Christian theology and ethics with the insights of empirical science and of economics in order to pursue three things at the same time. One is biblical earth stewardship. The second major concern that we have is economic development for the very poor around the world. Think in terms of places like sub-Saharan Africa and some parts of Asia and Latin America. And the other is access to abundant, affordable, reliable energy. No society has ever grown out of abject poverty without abundant, affordable, reliable energy. The supposed cure to dangerous man-made global warming is a greatly reduced dependence on fossil fuels for the energy that we need for electricity, for transport fuels, and so on. The consequence of that is to have to shift to energy sources that are significantly more expensive, especially wind and solar. And so if we want to see people rise out of abject poverty, we need to see them able to access energy. And unfortunately, a lot of the climate movement really tends to diminish their access to that. And I'm not persuaded that the use of fossil fuels causes greater problems as the trade-off. In fact, I'm very convinced that the problems that it causes are, by comparison, very small.
Gosh, what do I know about climate change? How do I feel about it?
It's real.
It's real. It's definitely real. It's good that it's getting acknowledged more.
Climate change is okay, I guess. The daylight saving is a little weird. I don't really understand the concept, especially in winter when it gets too dark.
Climate change is real, I think, especially with everything that happened in Texas and Florida.
Again, whether the climate change is because of certain things, that it could be true, it could not be true, but in the end, the thing that matters the most is man's soul, and that's why we come here. And the devil took him up on an exceeding high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
It's a real threat because basically we have a president that doesn't seem to believe in climate change, and I don't think he particularly cares about the issue. Pence is a Koch brothers person, so it's through Pence that all these Koch brother people have basically funneled into the Trump administration. And now that the election's over, they couldn't be happier because they have this pipeline, no pun intended, to the White House via Pence, because Pence has always been one of their biggest champions.
They have big business in oil pipelines. They own one of the biggest refineries in the upper Midwest in Minnesota that refines almost exclusively tar sands oil from Canada, which is some of the dirtiest oil on the planet. They also have money in various industries like cattle and timber. They have money in chemicals. They own a lot of big businesses around the world that they don't want regulated, is the bottom line.
You want to understand how opinions are held and why they're held so long, even in the face of evidence, you have to follow the muddy little footprints back, and they go back to the Koch brothers and to ExxonMobil. And Exxon knew about this by the record as early as 1977. The record now shows that their own scientists were telling the management that burning or selling our product is going to change the climate, and catastrophically so.
Exxon had internal scientists briefing the board about climate change. But they didn't tell the rest of us how urgent it was. Internally, they knew it was urgent. They didn't tell the rest of us. Instead, they funded campaigns of misinformation. It's a multi-million-dollar, multi-year plan to funnel money to give scientists who oppose the prevailing wisdom on climate change voice, give them a podium, give them a megaphone. How do we explain the Cornwall Alliance? Where do they fit in the larger matrix? Cornwall is part of the James Partnership, which is a nonprofit organization. They are funded in part through Donors Trust and Donors Capital Fund, which is another nonprofit. They are basically a donor-advised fund, which is a totally legal thing to do, where money comes in and is bundled together, so multiple donors give money to one thing, and then they now give out tens of millions of dollars to organizations that are fighting against climate change policy, right-wing, free market, libertarian think tanks that fight against climate change. Donors Trust is linked to the Koch brothers and their money through something called the Knowledge and Progress Fund, which is a big part of the money coming into donors. But we really don't know how these things function because it's deliberately hidden from view. So the bigger picture is the Koch brothers funding evangelicals who attack climate science.
We do not get funding from, big oil or big coal or big gas, anything of that sort. So if you're asking, am I defending fossil fuels? Yes. I hope that we're helping the natural gas industry. I hope that we're helping the coal industry, because I think that the benefits of using those three resources far outweigh the risks of using those resources.
So the idea is somehow this is all being done for the poor people, that's a sucker's argument. And the people that develop that argument, I want them to kick the Coke habit. Take no more money from anybody in any way connected to fossil fuels. Let's see how long the argument lasts. I don't think it'll last long.
So why do we just jump to the conclusion that any industry that is defending its product is somehow dishonest, is somehow pulling the wool over people's eyes? What if the people who are attacking the product are the ones who are pulling the wool over other people's eyes?
In this country, there has been a deliberate disinformation campaign that has lasted for decades, where organizations that have ties to the fossil fuel industry have found ways to keep some of these individuals who I'm saying who are not climate scientists, who are not meteorologists, who have nothing to do with climate and weather, in the news as the alternate skeptical viewpoint to something that in reality is supported by a mountain of evidence and is scientific fact.
Far, 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 far more important to my thinking than anything that we've discussed in this interview is your relationship with God. Right? Nothing else matters to me in the end. Eternity is a whole lot longer than the maybe 50 or 60 or 80 or 100 years that we can think that we might be able to figure out what our descendants are going to be doing. Anybody who thinks he can tell us what the total energy mix is going to be in the world 100 years from now is insane. We think on very, very short time frames, but your soul will be around forever.
What about those of us who are left on Earth? What about our kids and our grandkids? So is there an obligation to protect this place forever and to keep it whole and to keep the planet, still being able to provide our food and water and the basic things that we need to survive forever? If you don't believe that, if you think that this is all temporal and that it doesn't matter because we're going to another place called heaven, then you can just disregard your obligation to future generations. There are many, many people who believe the opposite of Calvin Beisner and believe that we have to protect the planet, protect clean air and clean water forever.